everybody. Charlie Stevens here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another guitar lesson. Alright, so today we're going to learn the D major scale, one octave in the open position. Okay, just like the key of C, there's really only one octave that we can get in the open position. When we did the key of G, we had two octaves that fit the open position. That's why G is actually a nice key. D is a very nice key for the guitar as well, but in the open position we can really only fit one octave. That's because our lowest D note is here. So when we go through, we end up here. So if we wanted to do another octave starting here, we would get quite far out of position all the way up to the 10th fret, okay? So we're not going to worry about that today. We're just going to do this part that exists within the position. We could almost do another octave going low, but we don't have a low D. So that would be like... I can drop my string and detune my E string until it's a D. That's called drop D tuning. Now I can get two octaves. Okay, so drop D tuning is very cool, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. I just wanted to mention that that's what we would need if we wanted two full octaves in the open position. And basically that's just because we don't have a low D unless we detune. Usually we only have E, so that means we don't have a D over here, and our first D is there. Okay, so that might be a little bit unnecessary that you understand that, but basically we're just doing one octave, and that's the reason why. Okay, so now let's talk about the key of D major. So, if you've seen the lesson about transposing the major scale, we learned the major scale formula, right? So we learned that we could start on any note we want, and we can do a certain arrangement of half steps and whole steps, and that will give us the major scale. Okay, so who remembers that pattern out there? Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Please review the video on that if you have no idea what I'm talking about here. But anyhow, when we did it on C, we went a whole step, that gave us D, whole step gave us E, half step gave us F, whole step gave us G, whole step gave us A, whole step gave us B, and a half step from there got us back to C. Always ends with a half step. And that second to last note, we call that the leading tone. So it really leads there, right? It's a little awkward to hang out on it. Our imaginations almost want to fill in. Kind of feels better when we get there. It gives us a sense of tension and resolution. Okay? So that's called the leading tone, and that's an important thing in the major scale. So when we did this in G, we started on the note G, we did a whole step, gave us the note A, whole step, gave us the note B. Now we did a half step, put us on the note C. That worked out. There's no B sharp, so a half step got us right to the next letter name. Then we need a whole step. That's the note D. Now we need another whole step. That's the note E. Then we need another whole step, and that's the note F sharp. And then we get to G. Okay, so the key of G had a sharp in it, right? It had an F sharp. And we needed that. If it had a regular F, we would not have gotten this leading tone, right? So one way to think about that is if we can just start on G and raise the leading tone, and we shall get the G major scale. Okay? Same thing is true from D. So the way scales work, they're organized by this thing called the circle of fifths, also known as the circle of fourths, depending on which way you're going around that same circle. Okay? And I'll do a whole lesson about that eventually. I don't want to worry too much about that right now, but if you know about the circle of fifths, great. And that can be a really useful tool in organizing the keys because the sharps carry over in a specific order. Okay, so we're going to learn about the key of D today, and we're going to see how the key of D is very close to G. The key of D has an F sharp just like G does, but it's going to have one more sharp. So key of C, 0 sharps, key of G, 1 sharp, key of D, 2 sharps. Okay, so see, that's why we're doing these specific keys. It happens to fit the circle of fifths, and it happens to give us very nice connections between these notes. Okay, so first of all, let's just copy the pattern we just did. So when we did G on one string, I didn't need to know what those notes are to know that I can do the same thing on D. And that's a D major scale, right? Open D to the 12th fret of D. Same exact pattern, same exact frets. Okay, so I didn't even need to know what notes those were. I could just use the pattern. Okay, now let's figure out what notes we need, though, and then we'll go back and we'll use the pattern we know, and we'll say the notes, and we'll like double check, and we'll see if we got it right. But basically, what we need to do is keep everything from the key of G. Okay, so all the natural notes that were in the key of G and the sharp that was in the key of G, the F sharp, that's going to carry down to D. Okay. Then we also know that for a major scale to exist, we need to have a raised leading tone. Okay, so what is the leading tone in the key of D? Well, let's go up here to D, 12th fret, and if I go back a fret, D flat, right, because it's flatter than D. What's another name for D flat? C sharp, right? And we have to call it C sharp in the key of D because otherwise we would have a D flat and a D, and that's actually not allowed to have two of the same letters, and then we would get 0 types of C. It would go right from B to D flat to D. There would be no C's in there, and that's not allowed. For a major scale to exist, we need to have one and only one of each of our 7 alphabet letters. They may have a sharp added to some of them. If we go the other way around the circle of fifths, we'll see keys that may have flats added to them, okay? But every letter name has to be represented once and only once. So we have to call that C sharp, okay? So C sharp is the leading tone of D because it's just behind the D. Does that make sense? Here, when we're doing this, that's our leading tone, and that happens to be C sharp, right? Okay, so now that we know that, we can write the key of D. You can just write out the key in alphabetical order, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D again, okay? Now, we have to bring down the sharp from the key of G. F was sharp, so that means that F is still going to be sharp in the key of D. So it's going to be D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, and usually we had C, right? The key of G had a C natural, not a C sharp. So that would be C had we not raised the leading tone, right? So instead of C, we raised that note, creating this leading tone between T and Do. Ti, do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's what I mean by Ti, do. That's another name for the 7 to 1. Great, so we've raised the leading tone to C sharp. You see how that works? So I can write it every key in alphabetical order, D, E, F, but I have to bring down the F sharp. F sharp, okay. G, A, B, C, but that's not a leading tone because C is here, that's 2 frets away from D. Leading tone is always 1 fret away from the tonic. So we had to make that C sharp and D, okay? We'll do a lesson where maybe we kind of take a more theoretical approach to this, and maybe we'll do all the keys, but this would carry over. So now I go a circle of fifths again from D, D, E, F, G, A. 5 notes away from D is A, so that means the key of A comes next. If I were to write out the key of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, now I just bring my sharps from D, so I had 2 sharps in the key of D, they were F sharp and C sharp. So I bring those down, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, and then G is not the leading tone of A, so I also sharp that and I get G sharp to A. Same frets on the A string, right? Okay, so maybe we'll do a whole lesson on the key of A and the A major scale at another point. I just kind of wanted to show you that this continues on, right? So this is a really good way to understand our different key centers and scales and the circle of fifths and know how we can use the circle of fifths. I know a lot of people memorize that and I think they don't really understand why. And the more and more you get into music theory, the more helpful that circle becomes. Okay? So let's verify this with the pattern we know. So we have D, we go a whole step, that gets us to E. Now we need another whole step. That gets us to F sharp. That's another reason why this is F sharp. Well, sure, I can know I had to bring it over from G, but, you know, really, it's because I needed 2 whole steps in a row, and from D, if you go 2 whole steps in a row, you get to F sharp. Okay? Go a half step, G, another whole step, A, another whole step, B. Now I need another whole step, and that's why I'm on a C sharp. Sure, I had to raise the leading tone, and there's that way of thinking about it as well, but it's all boiled down to this. We're still just following that pattern. Now I need a half step. Oh, and I have it now. I wouldn't have got a half step there if I didn't raise the leading tone either, right? But I did, so there we go. All right, so that's the kind of theoretical stuff I wanted to talk about today. And now I just want to show you how to play this in open position. Okay, so we're going to go, the way we just were playing these same three notes when we did it on one string is how we're going to start off. D on our open string, E on the second fret of that same string, F sharp, and I like to use my third finger here. It is possible to use these fingers for this. That would almost be correct in one way of thinking about open position where we're really using specific fingers, but I find it easier to use these. So I'm actually sort of in a second position, but since I'm using open strings, I think about this as open position. So feel free to leave a comment. We can discuss the differences of that if you're interested in that or have very strong thoughts about saying, I don't consider that one open position, or I only consider that one open position, not second position. Yeah, we can have a discussion about that if you want. But anyhow, I'm technically here, which could be considered second position because I'm using my open strings. I consider this open position. Okay, so we have D on the open string, E on the second fret, F sharp on the fourth fret of that same string, using fingers. Well, I don't need one for D, index, and then ring, right? Okay, next note is G, and even though I could play it here on the fifth fret like we did when we were doing it on one string, we had a G, I have a G on my open string, and when I play an open position, I made up a rule for myself where if an open string is an option, I have to use an open string, and that's what, to me, open position means. That's why it's okay for me to be in second position and also open position, because I'm, if I were really in second position, I'd actually play like this. I wouldn't play this D on the open string, I'd play here on the fifth fret. So there is a place to play it in closed second position. This is open second position. Whoops, I doubled up a note there because I got confused. So we have two B's in this shape that are both accessible. So we'll talk about that in 1 second here. So D, E, F sharp, G, we'll get that on the open string. Next is A. That's on the second fret, so that's right here. Okay, next note is B. That's right here, 2 frets higher than A, but it's also on our open B string, of course, right? Now, it's kind of nice to play this B here on the fourth fret, because look, we just played F sharp on the fourth fret, so then we get the same pattern again. That's kind of nice, right? But we don't get an open B string there, and to me, it's sort of an arbitrary rule, but like I said, when I'm playing in the open position, I'm kind of limiting myself to some other possibilities and deliberately playing the open string. And that's only when I'm studying it in terms of scales. If I'm playing a song, you know, I might play it here sometimes in the song, I might play it here, you know, depending on lots of different reasons. So don't feel locked in. This is why we learn all these different ones so we can mix them together, right? But this one, if I'm playing this like this, then it kind of to me looks like this. The closed position way that I was demonstrating before, right? So that's a little different. So I don't play the B here on the fourth fret. I play it on the open B string. So the C sharp here on the second fret of the B string. And then we're back home at D on the third fret. Well, that's the key of D, and that's how you play it in open position. We'll learn lots of different ways to play the key of D as we go, but that's a really nice way to get started in understanding what D is. So it's a key that has 2 sharps, D major that is, 2 sharps. What are the 2 sharps? Well, let's see, what was the key that had 1 sharp? Okay, it was G. What 1 sharp did it have? F sharp. Okay, so that means that the key of D has an F sharp in it, because it's the next one in the circle of fifths. So we know one of them's F sharp. What is the second sharp in the key of D? Well, let's see. When we did it in G, the reason that F sharp was the sharp we needed in G is because it created the leading tone of F sharp to G. We got a half step there. So that's what we need to do in D. So the F we already have sharped. It's going to be F sharp and D. Now we need to figure out what else to do. So what is the leading tone of D? C sharp. Okay? D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Cool, right? Strum a D chord in between there. Sounds nice. Alright, well I hope you enjoyed that lesson. Thank you so much for watching this course. If you're enjoying this series, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and all that good stuff, and I look forward to seeing you in another guitar lesson really soon. Thanks again. Bye.